There was nobody there. There was nobody in my row. It was really shocking. I've never been on a flight like that.
This flight from Toronto to New York is also practically empty.
Empty terminals, silent gates, 320,000 airline seats vanishing into thin air. That's not a projection. That's happening right now between Canada and the United States. Airlines are abandoning American routes at a pace we haven't seen since 9/11, and the numbers are staggering enough to make Wall Street analysts lose sleep. March 2025 saw international arrivals to the United States plummet by 11.6% compared to last year. But here's what should terrify every hotel owner, restaurant manager, and tourism official in America. Forward bookings from Europe for this summer are already down 13%. We're not talking about a minor adjustment. This is an avalanche, and it's only April. The most shocking part? Canada, America's closest ally, biggest trading partner, and source of 25% of all foreign visitors, is leading the exodus. Canadian arrivals dropped 20% in March. By April, land border crossings had collapsed by 35%. These aren't tourists choosing other destinations for vacation. These are people who used to drive across for weekend shopping trips, business meetings, family visits. Now they're staying home. I've been in this industry for 30 years, says Michael Chen, a veteran travel industry analyst based in Toronto. I've never seen sentiment shift this dramatically, this fast. Canadian travel agents are telling me their clients are actively asking for alternatives to US destinations. They want Europe, they want Asia, they want anywhere but America. The airlines are responding with brutal efficiency. Air Canada has slashed US-bound capacity by 7.4%. WestJet cut 8.5%. But the real shock comes from Flair Airlines. The budget carrier has eliminated 25% of its American routes. These aren't temporary seasonal adjustments. These are permanent cancellations, routes that may never return. Emirates, once a symbol of global connectivity to America, now operates just one daily flight to Los Angeles. They've reduced Boston and Seattle service and drastically cut frequency to Florida destinations that once thrived on international tourism. When Middle Eastern carriers, airlines that built their entire business model on connecting the world, start abandoning American cities, something fundamental has shifted. The economic mathematics are devastating. Tourism economics projects a 9.4% decline in international visitors for 2025, translating to $9 billion in lost spending. That's not just hotel rooms going empty, that's restaurants closing, tour guides losing jobs, retail stores boarding up windows. In Florida alone, where tourism drives nearly 15% of the economy, officials are scrambling to understand why their Canadian visitors, 3.3 million strong in 2024, are disappearing. Southwest Airlines CEO Bob Jordan delivered a chilling assessment to investors. Domestic leisure travel has dropped more than he's ever witnessed outside the pandemic. Think about that statement. A man who's spent his entire career in aviation, who's seen multiple recessions, terror attacks, and oil crises, says this is worse than anything except a global shutdown. The ripple effects are already visible at major airports. Southwest Florida International saw passenger traffic drop 3.3%. Kahului Airport in Hawaii experienced a crushing 9.2% decline. These aren't minor fluctuations. These are trend lines that spell disaster for local economies built on tourism dollars. But why now? Why this sudden dramatic shift? The answer lies in a perfect storm of policy decisions and changing global perceptions. Trade disputes have escalated tensions. New border enforcement measures have created an atmosphere of uncertainty. Travel advisories from 8 different countries, including close allies like the United Kingdom, Germany, and France, now warn their citizens about visiting the United States. "We're advising our executives to carry burner phones when traveling to America," reveals Sarah Martinez, a corporate security consultant who works with Canadian multinationals. The concern over device searches at borders has reached a point where major companies are treating U.S. travel like they would trips to authoritarian regimes. That's not normal. That's not healthy for business relationships. The timing couldn't be worse. America is set to host two of the planet's biggest events, the 2026 FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics. Billions have already been invested in infrastructure upgrades. Miami's Hard Rock Stadium alone received a $500 million renovation. New rail lines, modernized airports, expanded hotels, all built on the assumption that millions of international visitors would flood American cities. Now those assumptions look dangerously optimistic. With Canadian tourism in freefall and European bookings collapsing, who exactly will fill those stadium seats? The World Cup, co-hosted with Canada and Mexico, two nations currently at odds with U.S. trade policies, risks becoming a symbol not of American hospitality, but of its isolation. The transformation in Canadian sentiment is particularly striking. A nation that shares the world's longest undefended border with America, whose citizens once crossed freely for shopping and entertainment, has turned hostile almost overnight. Polls show 36% of Canadians have canceled or plan to cancel U.S. trips in 2025. In Quebec, that number jumps to 45%. The Buy Canadian movement has exploded on social media, with 1.2 million members actively promoting alternatives to American products and destinations. When Canadians, polite, friendly Canadians, are organizing boycotts of their closest neighbor, something has gone fundamentally wrong with America's place in the world. The numbers from Asia tell an even darker story. Chinese tourism to the United States, once a goldmine worth $18 billion annually, has evaporated like morning mist. In 2019, 3 million Chinese visitors explored American cities, universities, and national parks. Today, that number has crashed by 75%, and industry insiders whisper it may never recover.
The golden age of Chinese tourism to America is over, states David Wong, former head of Asia-Pacific operations for a major U.S. hotel chain. We built entire business strategies around Chinese travelers. Mandarin-speaking staff, Chinese payment systems, culturally tailored experiences. Now those investments sit idle while our competitors in Thailand and Japan capture that market.
The State Department's data reveals the stunning collapse. Chinese visitor visas issued in 2024 barely reached 400,000, down from 1.2 million in 2019. But the real shock lies in the details. Student visa applications, long considered recession-proof, have plummeted 40%. These aren't just tourists skipping Disneyland. These are future scientists, entrepreneurs, and innovators choosing to study elsewhere. Meanwhile, a new phenomenon has emerged that travel industry veterans call passport anxiety. Americans returning from overseas report increasingly hostile receptions at their own borders. Wait times stretch to 3 hours. Questioning grows more aggressive. Device searches have quintupled since 2019. The message, whether intentional or not, seems clear. International travel brings scrutiny, suspicion, and stress.
Jennifer Thompson, who manages corporate travel for a Fortune 500
describes
the shift.
Describes
Our
the shift.
employees used to fight
Our
for international
employees used to
assignments.
fight for
Now they're
international
asking for
assignments.
domestic alternatives.
Now they're
The
asking
hassle
for
factor
domestic
has simply
alternatives.
become too
The
high.
hassle factor
When a
has
business
simply
trip to
become too
Toronto
high.
requires the
When a
same
business
security
trip to
preparation as
Toronto
visiting
requires
Beijing,
the same security
something's broken.
preparation as visiting Beijing, something's broken. The cruise industry offers a particularly vivid illustration of the crisis. Royal Caribbean reports that American bookings for international departures have dropped 22% year over year. Norwegian Cruise Line has quietly shifted capacity away from U.S. ports, adding departures from Barcelona, Copenhagen, and Singapore. These floating cities, each carrying thousands of passengers and crew, are voting with their anchors. The technology sector faces its own reckoning. Silicon Valley, once the undisputed global hub for innovation, watches nervously as international talent flows redirect. Canada's tech immigration program has attracted 40,000 skilled workers who might previously have chosen America. The European Union launched its Blue Card program, specifically targeting professionals discouraged by U.S. visa restrictions. We're seeing a brain drain in reverse, explains Dr. Raj Patel, who studies migration patterns at Stanford. For the first time in modern history, more high-skilled workers are leaving America than arriving. The multiplier effect on innovation and economic growth will be catastrophic if this continues. The hotel industry's response reveals the depth of the crisis. Marriott International has paused development on 12 planned U.S. properties while accelerating expansion in Asia and the Middle East. Hilton's earnings calls now emphasize geographic diversification as a hedge against American market weakness. When the world's largest hotel chains start treating the United States as a risky bet, the implications ripple far beyond empty rooms. Orlando provides a stark case study. The theme park capital, which welcomed 75 million visitors in 2019, saw international arrivals drop 18% last year. Universal Studios quietly shelved plans for a fourth gate. Disney's ambitious expansion projects face internal questioning about projected attendance. These aren't minor adjustments. They're fundamental reassessments of America's draw as a global destination. The restaurant industry tells its own story of decline. Miami's famed Ocean Drive, once packed with international visitors, now sees vacancy rates approaching 30%. New York's Times Square restaurants report international customer counts down by half. San Francisco's Chinatown, historically sustained by Chinese tourism, faces an existential crisis with multiple landmark establishments closing permanently. Labor markets in tourist-dependent regions are already showing strain. Hawaii's unemployment rate jumped 2 full percentage points as international arrivals dried up. Las Vegas casinos report difficulty filling positions, not because workers aren't available, but because reduced international high-roller traffic has eliminated the lucrative tips that made those jobs attractive. The diplomatic fallout extends beyond tourism. 8 nations have now issued formal travel warnings about visiting the United States, citing concerns about arbitrary detention, device searches, and unpredictable enforcement actions. When democratic allies like Germany and Canada warn their citizens about traveling to America, the reputational damage transcends mere tourist dollars. This isn't just an economic story, notes former Ambassador Patricia Williams. When people stop visiting a country, they stop understanding it. Personal connections wither. Business relationships atrophy. The soft power that America cultivated over decades through cultural,